All right, welcome everybody. Why don't we get started? I'm so happy to see your faces and see your names, and so glad that you're here. It was really wonderful to see everybody last week who was able to make it, and I hope you got the recording if you weren't able to make it. And this is going to be a great session. I am wanted to just recap. Last time we talked about definitions that had to do with philanthropy. What is a grant? What is a grant? Program area? What is a time when funders are looking at your stuff and what are they looking for? We talked about those definitions and just like sort of laid the ground for doing this work. And we're joined by Antje Miller, who's the executive director of HEFN, Health and Environmental Funders. This time we're going to focus on three big areas: what goes into writing a proposal, what program officers think about in doing their job, what goes into a meeting with a program officer, and how you get prepared for it. And we're going to be joined by Gara LaMarche, who's been around progressive philanthropy for decades and was instrumental in getting money together to pass what was known then as Obamacare, and has served as ED for several foundations and most recently the Democracy Alliance, and he'll introduce himself more. So really, really glad to be with all of you and so excited. I wanted to introduce my partner, Dolores Garay, who's going to be doing this work together. It's a pleasure and honor to do this with her. And Dolores, why don't you say something about yourself?
Hi, my name is Dolores Garay, and I've been fundraising since the year 2000, and I'm a fundraising generalist. I'm I've done a lot of work with donors, particularly donors of color. And actually my new job, my job is I'm the membership director at the Donors of Color Network, which is a network for high net worth donors of color who want to give more money to advance racial equity, which is very exciting. You can email me and we'll share my contact info, but I'm thrilled to be here. And all of you doing such incredible work. So hopefully this will be really, really helpful.
Great. And Suzanne, welcome, and Lisa, welcome. So glad you're here. I'm Margie Fine. I'm still Margie Fine like I was last week. I teach, train, and coach social justice groups how to raise money. I'm chair of the board of the North Star Fund, which is a progressive foundation, community foundation here in New York City. And before that, years ago, I was executive director of the Unitarian Universalist Beach program at Shelter Rock. I love fundraising. I'm chair of the fundraising committee on the board of Center for Constitutional Rights. So unlike some consultants, I actually have to do what I tell you to do, or I suggest you do, right? I have to do it myself. I have to get the rest of the board members to make their annual donation, etc. So I'm beaming into you from the great state of Brooklyn, New York, and I'm so glad to be with you all today. So we can always ask more questions later. Oh, Kareem, thank you for the heart. We're not going to have time to go around and have everybody introduce themselves, but if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat so people can see you, what you do, and where you are, that would be great. As always, we're trying to have all of us learn from each other in addition to what Dolores and I have to share with you. So we're not going to do an anti-Farrian model. You're not an empty vessel that we drop information in. You have a lot of information and stuff too. And if you don't, no worry, from the rest of your work, you'll be able to share things. So Dolores is going to start us off with a poll. So Dolores, you're up.
All righty. So we have an exciting Zoom poll. Here it is. So just really quick, how many of you have written requests for funding proposals, not for government for this particular session? Just again, like pick a choice. So again,
there's no right or wrong. We just want to know you better.
We just want to get a sense of if all of you are experts, we don't want to be talking about this is a letter of intent, right? But then if folks are like, grants, what's a grant? Get me out of here. We also want to address folks who, maybe want a deeper dive on those sorts of things. So, we want to meet you where you're at. Ooh, I love looking at the results. Okay. So it looks like vast majority, more than I'd care to admit. Thank you. I'm also in that category. But we do have 50% of you who are maybe written 7 or under. So that's a nice spread. One of the things I love about fundraising is that you can learn, no matter how long you've been in fundraising, you can learn something from everyone at every level. It's a very dynamic field, right? Like everyone has good input. So those of you who've written 3, those of you who've never written any, and the majority of you have written several. I please feel free to chime in with your insights. And it's an ever evolving field. And love all the folks come into the chat with their names and their info. Really appreciate it. So just to kind of like lay it out in the beginning, what are the elements of a grant proposal? Of all
And
the
Dolores, just before you start, I wanted to introduce Amber Pinto, who's one of the co-leaders of doing the project, the fundraising for health justice. So Amber, wave, we can see you. Thank you. And I want to introduce Avery, who's our tech person. Avery, can you come on camera? They're great. If you have any tech issues, you can reach out to Avery or to Amber. And just want to make sure that you are here and welcome the people who just joined us. So great. Okay. Sorry, Dolores.
Oh, no,
Go
no,
back.
apologies. Sorry, we forgot to give that space for Ambar and Avery, who honestly, without nothing would happen at all, ever. Okay, so elements of a grant proposal. One of all the aspects of fundraising, grant proposals are, I feel like, are the easiest to learn and the easiest to outsource. It's very, very, very analogous to writing for school, right? Restate the question in your answer, utilize the keywords provided by the teacher / funder, right? So I think that it's of all the kinds of fundraising, it's one of the anyone can learn how to do grant writing. Many of you, 42% in fact, are expert at this. And for those of you who are still, really trying to improve your skills, like I bet, one, I bet you're better than you think you are. And 2, I know that, you know, every funder is different. So that feels like I never know what I know, but trust me, all of you are experts in what you're doing and you know what you know. The main thrust of a grant proposal is you're translating, right? So next slide. Oh, you get to see my little spinny thing. Okay, so one of the things, and this is something I have to tell myself every time I have to start to submit a proposal for funding, is read all the instructions and read them thoroughly, right? You want to really make sure you're kind of going through all the information they provide. And there is more and more, I think, a movement among the philanthropic community to try to make things a little easier. I know it doesn't feel that way, but they are trying. And so make sure you just, you read through all of the elements before you begin to make sure you understand what they're really asking. And you really want to utilize what they provide. If there's a template, right? Now all of it is online, right? And that can be, kind of a tricky beast, right? So you want to make sure you can have a full swath of all the questions. You want to pay attention to the word restrictions, right? You want to make sure you're hitting all those marks. And oftentimes in the different parts of a grant proposal, some of the sections will feel duplicative or like this, I just said that already and they want you to say it again. And you want to utilize every opportunity they have to tell your compelling story about your critical work. And one of the things that we're going to send to you after this is that after you fill out the evaluation, see what I did there? We're going to include a list of handouts of just different little resources, because honestly, like learning from Margie is like talk about a master class, like seriously, just amazing, her history in social justice and philanthropy. So there's, kind of straightforward elements like on every proposal. All right, funnily enough, the executive summary is what I'm going to start with, even though that really you should do that at the end. It's just kind of, an overall paragraph summary of that kind of in each line kind of hits the totality of what you're applying for, right? It includes like a bit of information about all the aspects. And you really do want to write it at the end. I know I included this Mandela to help you think like the executive summary is like, how do I need to tell you all of it in a very simple way, right? This is where oh, go ahead, sorry.
Would this be like your core values?
No, great question, Shayla. This is a summary of the entire proposal, like everything you've done, like in a kind of a summation paragraph. It'll include maybe align about those values. But this is like, you know, at the very, after you're all done, if you're going to tell someone, hey, this is what this whole 15-page thing is about, it's in this little summary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of like a cover letter is how my brain is processing it.
Oh yeah, no,
Well,
don't.
it's also, as somebody who was a funder for a long time, if you got a big stack of grants, even now they're online, and you have to make quick ideas about which ones you're gonna look at deeper, you might read the executive summary first, because it'll tell you, oh, it does hit the right spots, or, oh, this looks like it's gonna be really good, but it's about tropical diseases and we don't fund that. So it'll give you that stuff to know really quickly. So you're gonna take, you wanna write it much longer for your full proposal, and then take the really high notes of that, put it in your executive summary, so that person can quickly get a sense of what this is about and can know, do I want to go on to look at more?
Thank you.
Welcome.
And it looks like Anne was going to say something.
I'm all set.
Oh, okay, awesome. Okay, cool. So yeah, and again, please like chime in, put your hand up, you know, throw something in the chat, however you want. If I'm speaking too quickly or not making sense, feel free to interject. All right. Let's move on to our next slide. Now,
Okay. Oh, I think that's me, right?
I'm going to let me pass it over to Margie.
Okay, good. All right. So lovely people. You don't have to write these in exactly the way that I'm showing you in this and Dolores is showing you, but you want to touch base on all these different things and also be reflecting back, as Dolores said, to what the funder is asking for, and be mindful of what language the funder uses. So I want you to think about what's the problem, the issue that's animating your work. Animating just makes making it alive. What's the issue you're working on, or issues? You may be doing something about hungry children can't learn. Like, it's a number of different things there, but it helps the person get an idea of what is the problem you're trying to solve for. Organizers would say, what's the issue we're going to organize on to make things work? So what is the problem, the issue, the injustice you're trying to address? And what data can you use to show the harms of the problem? If I, as a funder, had pet peeves in the way people wrote proposals, often people could go on forever about the problem and leave very little for what they're going to do about it. So I don't want you to go on and on about the problem, but I want you to give some background, some context about what's the issue and what's happening with it, some data there. And make sure that you're matching this to what the funder cares about. Maybe the funder doesn't fund community organizing, but they really believe in neighborhood involvement of parents in issues. How can you bridge between those two? Any question on that part, on what I mean there? Okay, we can always come back to it, but I'm going to keep going. Context is in what world are we doing this work? Are you doing this work? What's happening about this now? So if you've taken on reproductive rights now, you're doing this in a moment when Roe v. Wade has just been killed. So what does that mean for understanding this work and what you're doing? It makes what you do comprehensible to the reader. You want to get a sense as much as you can as if your reader, your program officer, is somebody who knows your issue really well, or somebody who seems brand new to their job or brand new to this work. You want to try to get a sense of who they are. You might look them up on LinkedIn, look them up on Facebook. They often have a bio on the webpage of the funder. So you have an idea of what they're coming with. So you want to make it comprehensible to the reader about who you are. You, the writer, you, the organization. It defines your strategic relationship to other actors in the world. So I would be very careful to never say bad things about other groups working in your area. You could say, this is what so-and-so brings to this work. This is what this group does. This is what we do. This is what we're trying to do. And you want to make that really clear to them. So if this is in the context area, if it's not one of these things, it probably doesn't belong here. So you might end up having context in part of your theory of change if the funder is asking for that. Doesn't have to just be a whole separate section called context, but I want to make sure you put this into your proposal. And for you who said, oh yeah, I've written more proposals than I want to even think about, chime in, let me know what you think, if you think this makes sense or your perspective on it. Any questions there? Sure I'm not going too fast for you. Anne?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, you lit up. So that's why I thought maybe you
Well,
had
you
a
know,
question.
just so you know, I'm paying attention.
Okay, thank you. That's good. I like that. Thank you for that. All right, let's go to organizational background.
Okay, so just to kind of reiterate what Margie said, you know, one thing that another word for context is ecosystem. Funders love to say, who's in your ecosystem, or what part of what ecosystem are you a part of, right? And that's really about like, oh, like I'm trying to help, you know, middle school and high school youth, you know, avoid STDs, right? So I know about the Boys and Girls Club, and I know about the Planned Parenthood, and I know about the like the health, you know, the health programs at the public school, right? Like you have your context is that you're aware of the work that's happening in your terrain, right? Now, when we're talking about organizational background, this is where like you're establishing, you know, kind of what you do, right? Like, where do you work? In Denver, Colorado, and maybe it's in the Five Points neighborhood, right? Or maybe it's in Oakland in the Lake Merritt neighborhood, right? Or who do you serve? We serve Vietnamese immigrant youth living in Aurora, Colorado, or we serve LGBT seniors in Los Angeles, right? As you know, maybe you serve all the people, but you want to lay it out, right? You're trying to really paint a picture of what your work is, and you know, as concrete as possible. What are your programs? This is where you can succinctly say, you know, we have a youth program that does XYZ. We have a elder program that does XYZ. We do health advocacy by lobbying at the Capitol, or and teaching county public health administrators how to talk about their health needs, right? This is where you want to be able to simply and specifically say what you do, right? And then you also want to share, how long have you been around? Maybe this is the time for your inspiring origin story. A mother on a snowy night in 1985 decided, or however that comes to you. A group of youth got very tired of not having X, Y, or Z, right? But you're trying to establish both that you can clearly share what you're doing, you can clearly share who you're serving and where they're at, right? So that's the kind of, it's the very kind of the all of it, right? And for some, this format Margie and I are kind of talking through are really to help you prepare like a template proposal that you can then cut and paste from. So it's not like, because every funder is going to want different parts of this, but if you have like, and this is particularly those among you who are more seasoned, having this document, a template proposal that you update at least annually, it makes everything else so much easier. And I know it's so hard to find the time. I know it is, right? With fourth quarter, I'm amazed any of you are here, and I thank you for that. I thank you. But having that template proposal can make such a big difference, right? Next slide. I think that's you.
Okay, that's me. Okay, so I want you all to be thinking as we go through this, what's your strategy? And Kareem, I'm going to come to you first to ask you to just speak to this. We can hear from some of you about how you think about this. So you want to have what's your strategy? Are you advocacy? Are you organizing? Are you research? Are you service? Are you something I didn't suggest that you're doing? And you want to know why you chose that. Of all the different ways you could be approaching the issue you've talked about before, why did you choose to do this one? And it can operate at many levels. I suggested some here: organizational, mission, campaign, tactics, different things like that. So Kareem, what would you say your strategy is as an organization?
I would say, if you guys can hear me already, I just had to switch over from my head.
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So I would say for MISHWA, the Michigan Community Health Worker Alliance, our strategy, is always to put our mission first and foremost. We're promoting and sustaining the integration of community health workers throughout Michigan's health and human services. We do that through two buckets. It's through coordinated changes in policy and workforce development, as well as training and development of CHWs. So when we engage with funders, we make sure that we present our passion, we present our mission, and engage them and format our proposals so that way they can see the value of the work that we do.
Great, excellent. And what would you say your strategy is? And then I'll wait for somebody else to volunteer to go. Ann Willison.
Hi, everybody. Our strategy at Consumers for Affordable Healthcare is to use the information we learn from people who contact us on our Consumer Assistance Program helpline for information about health insurance coverage. What we learned from that helpline is information we use to further policy initiatives at both the state and federal level to improve access to health insurance and healthcare.
Excellent, great. Who else has a strategy they want to lift up? Janae, are you there? What's your strategy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I mean, I think our strategy involves like grassroots and community organizing
Great.
most explicitly. So
Great, that's good. And are you allowed to say that straight out, or do you talk about it in a more roundabout way because of your funders?
no, I think we can say that we utilize grassroots organizing. Yeah.
Good, excellent. Okay, one more person.
Yeah, I can go. This is
Good.
Kendall with Black Women for Wellness, and our mission statement, I feel like, actually outlines our strategy. We seek to advance the health and well-being of Black women and girls through health education, empowerment, and advocacy. So I feel like that outlines 3 of our primary strategies. Of course, we have other ones as well, but those
Good.
I would say are the primary ones.
But that's good to know the primary ones, because sometimes you try to tell everybody, the program officer, everything you're doing, but you want to focus on what they might care about. And that's a great way to do that. All right, that's good. Nicole, did you just come off? Did you want to say something? Don't worry, you don't have to. I'm just glad to see your face. All right, let's go to the next slide. Oh, go ahead, Nicole. Go ahead. No, okay. Okay, I have found people get really stuck about what's the strategy, what's the goal, what's the activities. It's not so much that you have to make sure you put it in the right bucket. It's that I want you to form a picture in the reader's head about what you're doing and make them kind of excited about that, or compelled that, wow, this is a really good way by having a hotline to really hear directly from consumers in the area, so it bridges to what that funder cares about. So this is a statement about what it is, what's the program or initiative, what you want to accomplish, and you can make it both long-term and short-term. The good thing about that is that you could do some of the broad strokes, like we would like to end poverty tomorrow. And so we want, and the healthcare things that go along with poverty, but that's not the money you get from this funder. You're not going to be able to just do that. So you want to be able to talk about breaking it down to a bite-sized level that you can actually make a difference in. And the objectives are what you're expected, that are well-defined, specific, measurable, derived from the goals. So you want the goal, you want the objective, you want the activities somewhere in there, because you know why? Different funders will measure things in different ways, and this will help you get to that, of what they want. You want to be explicit about what you're trying to do. So you don't want to say, well, we work around healthcare. Work around does not help make a picture in the funder's head. Nail it, say what it is that you do, describe what you do. Give an example, as Dolores said before, about somebody you might be working with, and distinguish between long-term, medium, and short-term. Dolores, I saw you put something in there. Do you want to add to that?
Oh, sure. Just, I think that, like, you all of you have goals, strategies, all of you have these things. It's just the language that the funder is using, right? So, and different funders are going to use different words for these things, right? But as long as you have it clear in your mind, your goal is like improving health outcomes, you know, for people in a certain community, right? A strategy is educating, you know, educating children about how not to catch STDs and whatnot, right? An objective is, you know, we're gonna try to reach kids in 40 schools, right? And then a tactic is we're going to partner with all of the elementary schools drama departments to do like skits about not catching STDs, right? So you just want to, like, all of you know this already. It's just putting it in this kind of like linear, boxy, box by box format, right? And people can get really tripped up. And then, so, but I don't want you to feel like you have all these things. It's just adapting, translating your language into this kind of like way the funder wants you to talk about it.
Years ago, this used to be a commercial on TV where this very elderly woman was going to McDonald's or someplace to get a hamburger, and she was opening up the bun and saying, "Where's the beef? Where's the beef?" In some ways, and even to all you vegetarians, even if it's, "Where's the carrots?" What is it that make that you're doing something? Why should anybody care? So your activities is where's the beef? What are you doing about this specifically? How many classes are you going to do? Where does your hotline, how far does it reach? Where does it get to? Any of those things, are you translating some of your work into something else? You want to have, are the efforts you're going to conduct to achieve the objectives? Describe, but don't over describe, because you want to have something to talk about when you meet with the funder, but you want to have, again, what do you need to say that points a picture in their head? What's an example of something you might say? This mother called about this, we were able to help her with this. This is what the result was here. And be clear about how your activities are aligning with your goals in there. So let me see who else I can talk to. Lisa Jones, what would you say is activities that you're doing?
Just like someone else said, our main activities, we do grassroots organizing. So we do congregational based organizing. So we train our leaders to come up with different strategies on the different issues that we have in Milwaukee.
Great, it's good. What if the funder doesn't know what organizing is, or you don't think they come from that direction? What would you do?
What we usually do is what I've done. I haven't done a ton of grants, so I'm one of the few. So, but what I have done is usually put our mission statement in there that talks about how old we are, and as an interfaith organization, you know, talking about racialized poverty and organize. So it kind of those few sentences kind of wrap that up in there. And usually when we're writing grants for organizing, I mean, we don't do programmatic like meals or something, but we do say that we're going to organize however many people or however many meetings. We try to put some sort of accountability in the grant that way.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that. And Lisa, let me know along the way. Let us know as a newbie in writing grants, how this is helping or what question you may still have left in your head. For one of you who said, oh, I've written more than I can count, any advice you want to give to Lisa or others here about talking about the goals and objectives in the activities? Go ahead, Suzanne.
One thing that we like to do in our objectives and like deliverables, our motto is to under promise and over deliver. So we put a safe number that we know we're going to hit for sure, because we found that it's a lot more impressive if you say that you're going to get 100 people and you get 200 people, but it's disappointing if you say you're going to get 100 people and you get like 98. Like then you have to say, no, you didn't actually reach that goal or whatever. So if you make it a safe one and you can blow those goals out of the water, you know, we found that the program officers who work with us really appreciate that when they go back to their board with the grant reports, they can always say that we've reached our goals. And, you know, they understand that this is a learning process. I guess, you know, we don't always reach our goals, I should say that, but we're a reliable, you know, we will do what we say we promise with every effort that we can. So
excellent. Excellent. Jennifer, what would you add to that? Thank you, Suzanne.
So we're a policy org, and I know we're not the only research and policy org on these calls because I've been on some of these calls, which means that it's sometimes hard for us to talk about deliverables because pushing for policy change is a multi-year effort. So we talk a lot in terms of deliverables, in terms of pushing conversation and shaping narratives at the state level. So yeah, we see success when policymakers pick up our points, when we are getting press hits, when we are so it's a way that we can take things that are not quantifiable and make them like, okay, well, this we did. So it also means that there are certain funders who won't touch us with a 10-foot pole, but there's also always going to be certain funders who will not touch a policy organization with a 10-foot
True.
pole.
You got that right. And so you don't want to get a black and blue mark on your forehead by still going to them. But as a funder, I always appreciated when policy groups would say, and this is how XYZ groups used what we did. Use that. That's really good way to say it. It's not going to make the funder say, oh, I'm going to go fund them instead. No, it really helps to see what difference it made what you did. And Nicole was nodding her head too. So thank you for that, Jennifer. Anybody else want to add anything more about that?
Yeah, just kind of on that, on the policy piece. Thanks for bringing that up, Jennifer. I think that, so you can, even if it's not a direct service, like a meal delivered, you know, a person trained, you can quantify things like policy advocacy, like how many meetings did you get with the senators? How many of them incorporated your talking points into their speeches or their platforms, right? How many like media hits, like anything, essentially anything that you can count that shows, you know, that your work is out there is what you can use to utilize to make your case. And that, and, you know, don't feel like some people's like, oh, it's so easy when they can just say like they gave 100 kids breakfast, or which is, you know, that's one quantifiable thing, but whatever work you're doing is quantifiable, right? It really, really is. And you're not quantifying it in terms of like trying to make a case around like widgets and digits. And it's more like saying like, no, like we know that when we produce this really incredibly well-researched and community focused and community-based policy position, we know this can move the needle, because no senator can be expected to know every single thing about every single issue, right? And having that out there. And so you really want to, this is part of the, where you're translating your work, the incredible work that all of you do, the incredible outcomes and impacts and activities that you're doing, you're translating that to the funder's language, right?
100%. Great. All right, let's go on to anticipated outcomes. Okay, so this is where you get to have, you want to pay attention to what the funder's looking for, what they think are good outcomes, and what you do. So you can say what it's going to be. You can have funders who care how many workshops you did, and you can have funders who will care more about how you could tell that different people who went through your program became leaders. Different people will, or for the people doing policy work, who used it? What was your methodology? Did you use people to go out there and find out things? I funded a group once that had young men of African and Latino descent on their bicycles where nobody was paying attention to them, monitor how many trucks didn't turn off their engine, which was making asthma go up in their community a lot, and how it engaged them in doing this, in finding out this information. So you can talk about what were the outcomes, how did you get to those incomes and outcomes, and see how that integrates with what your activities are. One of your goals is young people's leadership. You want to be able to take that back to this, how what you're doing has to do with this. Yeah, and distinguish between outputs and impact. What do you think that means? What do you think, Ceci?
I think, like, for example, in our cases, whenever we're doing outreach, and like what I'm thinking of mostly is like our healthy workplaces, like our output would be like how much PPE we distributed, but like our actual impact would be maybe like how many more folks were going out into the community and like sharing the information that we also included with that.
Perfect. That's a perfect example. The outputs is how many you may have done of something. We did 30 workshops. We turned out 1,000 people to meet with the mayor. The impact is, what difference did it make? At the end of the day, what difference that you did what you said you did, or what happened with that? Yeah, and did it have the impact that you were looking for or not? Can you say why? Can you talk more about that? So that was great, Ceci. Thank you. Any other comments about?
I have a question.
This? Go ahead.
Is it bad if you present, for example, your goals and objectives and your achievements, and they are not what you expected? Is that bad to like describe?
No, you know what's great about it? This is a word that funders use a lot. It's called learnings. What were your learnings? What was the learning what you did? I see Jennifer smiling. So if you want to just, you can tell them that. Maybe you say, wow, we did this with this idea and then this thing happened. Funders love to learn from the learnings. They often want to share them with other people. I think that's a great thing to do. I think if what you got money for, if it was very project specific, ended up being different, and you're starting to see that while you've got the grant, I would try to let your funder know earlier on. Wow, you wouldn't believe what's been happening as we've been doing this. Wanted to let you know, pretty interesting, and just have a conversation with them about that. So no, that's a very good thing to do. So Nicole, I saw you nodding your head. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I agree with everything.
All
I
right.
think what helps us also is being from a policy shop is also talking about how we're able to empower community members through our research. So that impact, while our overall goal is to move a policy, but we actually were able to empower communities to advocate for themselves in XYZ ways.
Great. Great. That's good. Good. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. All right, evaluation. So the funders are going to have their idea of how they're evaluating work. And often you can see in their write-up about what they're doing, what they consider success, how they're evaluating things. But I also think you should never let go of your power in saying, here's how we're evaluating things. Here's how we're figuring out at the end of the day, end of the month, end of the year, end of the campaign, if what we're doing is working, or why we're doing it, or what we learned from it to do better the next time. So you can talk about your methodology. You can talk about your organizational culture. You might have gone from being an all-white organization to being more